Today, let's talk about big plans for Psuche. Big plans for Psuche. We started dealing with what Jesus brought back to us, what he reintroduced. We started talking about what it looks like when you're born again and how that your spirit is automatically and completely fixed. And then that starts the process of you fixing the soul on the outside. And there's some way that you move from one to the other. And it's opposite the world system, which wants to change you from the outside, make you different on the inside. God wants to start on the inside and move it to the outside. So how did Jesus attack Psuche? What was his focus? How did he deal with Psuche? What example can we learn from him about how we're supposed to deal with that? Matthew 26:39. After going a little further, he fell face down and prayed, saying, "My Father, if it is possible that it is consistent with your will, let this cup pass from me. Yet not as I will, but as you will." Now, what's going on here? You've heard that verse before. What's happening? Where's he at? Okay.
Is he in the garden?
He's in the Garden of Gethsemane. He had just left the Last Supper, and he knows all this is about to start transpiring.
I've been in counseling for having a fear of pain, so I'm the person that can speak to that.
Well, that's his soul.
This is his soul talking, right?
Yes.
His soul is even Jesus. His soul wasn't, and I don't want to say his soul wasn't redeemed. His soul still had opportunity for it to be controlled.
It's a human side.
It still needed to be controlled. Otherwise, again, his sacrifice doesn't mean anything to us if he didn't do it exactly with the same equipment that we have available to us to do it with.
Yeah. Pray to give his will to God for the Father.
So it's his soul that's having a fit here. It's his soul that's starting to get out of control, trying to rebel, okay. My Father, if it's possible, take this cup of suffering away from me. However, not what I want, but what you want. Father, if it's possible, please save me from this time of great pain. But Father, I do not ask you to do what I want. Do what you want to do. Father, this is the last thing I want. If there's any other way, please take this bitter cup from me. Not my will, but yours be done. So he's asking for another way. God, is there any other way to do this other than what I think I'm about to have to do? The fact that he had to do it suggests that God's answer was, there is no other way. I'm sorry, but there is no other way. This has to be done, and it has to be done like this. If there was another way, don't you think God would have made that happen for him? No other way to do what exactly? Shed blood. And we get that whole side of it, and we're growing in our understanding of that. But I'm going to say there's something else going on here that most of us have never considered. And this is the only way that could happen too. What is that before? What is that other thing that he's trying to do here?
Put the soul
Yes.
down.
Yes. Yes, that's exactly what's going on here. And that's the part of this that I've never really seen until we started studying this. So started looking.
Yeah, chapter 9 was slap chip.
Yeah, it was tough.
Yeah.
So before I expound upon that anymore, let's back up in the passage a couple of verses and see if you can see something else here. Taking with him Peter and the two sons of Zebedee, he began to show grief and distress of mind and was deeply depressed. Okay, stop right there. Grief, distress of mind, and deeply depressed. Where are those things operating? The soul. So the soul is starting to go nuts here. The soul is approaching this encounter, and it is starting to go crazy. It's starting to have all sorts of things manifest, if you will, or things released in Jesus's soul as he begins to approach this thing. 38. Then he said to them, "My soul is very sad and deeply grieved, so that I'm almost dying of sorrow. Stay here and keep awake and keep watch with me." Now, note the word soul here is Psuche, the one that we're talking about. You probably figured that out already. It's so bad in my soul, in my Psuche right now, that I am feeling like I'm going to die of sorrow. Now, in my head, I think he's thinking about the pain. That's where my head would be, because that's what's been emphasized on it. But could it be that the soul is seeing its possible extinction and putting up a last stand fight? Could it be that this soul has ruled mankind now for thousands of years, ever since the fall of Adam? It has been the one in charge. It has gone unopposed. And now you've got a guy showing up that never yielded to the soul, that never exalted the soul. And he is facing the process by which he's about to go to the cross. And the soul's, no, wait a minute. Whoa. I'm about to lose my authority here. I'm about to be exterminated. I'm about to be crucified. I'm about to be put in my place. No, I don't think so. So his soul starts the process of arguing through whatever ways that they can argue. Okay, you're going to try to kill me. I'm going to make you feel sorry. I'm going to make you feel depressed. I'm going to make you feel envious and sad. And I'm going to do whatever is in my power to do to prevent you from killing me. He took with him Peter, 2 sons of Zebedee with him, began to be very sad, sorrowful, and troubled, anguished, distressed. He said to them, my heart, my soul, it's full of sorrow, overwhelmed with grief to the point of death. Stay here and watch. Stay alert, stay awake, be alert with me. Why is the soul upset? Okay, if he's thinking about the pain, is that a soulish issue? Yes, no. The soul feel it, so would the spirit. It's on the body. Okay, he's going under the weight of taking the sin of the whole world. Again, would the soul experience that? That would be a spiritual thing. That would be his spirit. I'm about to be separated from the Father. Well, I think on the cross he was surprised when that happened. God, why have you forsaken me? Whoa, I didn't see that one coming. I didn't see the fact that you're going to turn away. You couldn't look at the sin. I didn't expect that. Where are you? Where'd that go? So what is his soul reacting to here? If the soul's not responding to the physical pain, if the soul's not responding to the situation of assuming the weight of the sins of the world, if the soul's not aware of, I'm going to be separated from my Father for a moment, and that's never happened before, what is the soul protesting? Its future extinction. The fact that it's about to go to the cross and be mastered, and its rule and its authority stripped. We finally got a guy here that's going to never exercise his own soul above what his spirit is telling him to do. I can't get this guy to trip. I can't get this guy to blow it. So I'm in real danger here, and I'm going to fuss and scream and fight tooth and claw to try and keep myself alive and not under his complete dominion and complete control and authority. Taking along Peter and 2 sons of Zebedee, he plunged into an agonizing sorrow. Then he said, this sorrow is crushing my life out. Stay here and keep vigil with me. What sorrow? He was about to buy him back. Where's this sorrow coming from? That soul is making a last stand. That soul is giving him fits about, oh, you're not about to kill me. You're not about to dethrone me. You're not about to take me out. I'm going to fuss. I'm going to holler. I'm going to scream. I'm going to do whatever I can possibly do to make sure that you don't finish this task. My heart is overwhelmed and crushed with grief. It feels as though I'm dying. Stay here and keep watch with me. I always assumed Jesus was dealing with the physical pain he was about to experience. When I matured a little bit, I added assuming the weight of sin for the entire world. I still think I missed a big part of what was happening here. These things are true, but incomplete at best. This was the last stand of an exalted Psuche trying to avoid death on the cross. Jesus had defeated powerful Psuche at every point before this final showdown. It stands to reason that Jesus was about to end his life exactly the way that he started it, and also the way that he lived at every turn in complete humility. Now, let's think about that for a second. Jesus did everything in complete humility. Humanity wanted a king. So Jesus shows up as a servant. Is that the way to get your soul happy? Is that the way to let the soul be in control? Humanity wanted a military leader, but Jesus came as a foot soldier. He was born in an animal trough instead of a palace or a luxury resort. Instead of one vengeful, I'll show you action, he accepted being mocked, spit upon, ridiculed, and scorned. You see how all of these things are a direct assault against the soul and its predominance. The soul is based in pride. The soul is based on, look at me. Look at what I'm able to do. Look at what I'm able to accomplish. Look at all of my wisdom. Look at all my accolades. Look at me. And Jesus' whole life was about doing the exact opposite that soul would normally require. So why would this be any different? Why would Jesus do it this way? Every facet of his life was meant to reverse the fall. Remember that at the fall, we talked about this in session 1, Psuche took control of all humanity. Pride entered the human heart and became its foundational power in the Psuche's rule. Everything about the way Jesus came, lived, and was about to die was an all-out assault against our proud and exalted Psuche. And we have, at least me, I'll speak for me, I have missed that this whole time. Oh, he couldn't sin. No, he couldn't sin. That would mess everything up. But what would sin be in that case? Doing the same thing Adam did. I'm going to exalt my soul. I'm going to exalt my will. I'm going to do it my way instead of doing it God's will. Notice what the Bible says about our magnificent Savior and Redeemer. Let's do this quickly. For he, the servant, this is Isaiah 53:2. For he, the servant of God, grew up before him like a tender shoot plant and a root out of dry ground. He has no stately form or majestic splendor that we would look at him, nor handsome appearance that we would be attracted to him. Now think about that. Why was that necessary?
It would appeal to his pride.
It would appeal to his pride. It would give Psuche a more of a leverage point in his life to start interacting, to start trying to mess things up. Here's some others from that. But the servant of God grew up before him like a tender plant, like a shoot out of dry ground. He had no form or comeliness, royal or kingly pomp, that we should look at him, and no beauty that we should desire him. Now, if you were creating the world and, hey, I want everybody to focus on my son, how would you have sent him? Wouldn't he be the most handsome, the most charismatic, the most athletically gifted, all those traits, all those characteristics? Wouldn't that be the person? He was always close to the Lord. He grew up like a young plant, like a root growing in dry ground. There was nothing special or impressive about the way he looked. Nothing we could see that would cause us to like him. All of this was an attack on Psuche, on the ruling characteristics of Psuche. The Lord's servant grew up in front of him like a young green plant with its roots in dry ground. He was not handsome. It's pretty blatant. He was not handsome. Oh, thanks. Appreciate that. Forever let it be written, forever let it be spoken. He did not seem like a great king. Thanks, God. Appreciate the pep talk here.
Right.
We did not see him as a special person. There was nothing to see that would make us want to be with him. And yet we look back historically and we think, well, no, I would have obviously recognized who he was. I would have obviously known what was going on here. I would have been different. Really? Based upon what? Why do you think that? Overinflated opinion, would be my answer there, but why would we think that we would be any different? The servant grew up before God, a scrawny seedling, a scrubby plant in a parched field. There was nothing attractive about him, nothing to cause us to take a second look. Why would the wisdom of God send Jesus like that? Unless the whole point of it was another affront to Psuche, who was dominating humanity from the time of Adam until the present time. The guy that Psuche expected never showed up. And consequently, that guy never bowed to this formidable master. So if you're a Psuche and you're in charge, you're ruling this class. Oh, there's coming a deliverer one day. Well, how's that deliverer going to come? Oh, he's going to be in this and he's going to look like this. He's going to act this way. He's going to do this. That guy never showed up. And consequently, the person that we're dealing with, Jesus, who put Psuche on its head, was able to destroy something that had ruled for all this period of time completely. John 5:19. But Jesus answered them, I tell you the truth. Truly I say to you, the Son can do nothing alone on his own initiative by himself. The Son does only what he sees the Father doing, because the Son does whatever the Father does. For whatever the Father does, the Son does likewise. Seems to be very repetitive there, but it's a good verse. So Jesus explained himself at length. I'm telling you this straight. The Son can't independently do a thing. Only what he sees the Father doing. What the Father does, the Son does. The truth is, the Son does nothing on his own. All these actions are led by the Father. The Son watches the Father closely and then mimics the work of the Father. So Jesus said, I speak to you eternal truth. The Son is unable to do anything from himself or through his own initiative. I only do the works that I see the Father doing, for the Son does the same works as his Father. Now, when you hear this verse, even in the different versions, what do you think? Well, some of us think, well, Jesus was confused. He could have done whatever he wanted to do. It said, I'm unable to do anything unless I see my Father do it. Well, was that true? Could he physically do something apart from the Father? He could have physically done something apart from the Father. But in that moment, who's in charge? His soul is ruling the situation. And then that soul would have never been able to be killed because he had bowed to it. So was it physically possible for Jesus to do something apart from God? Yes. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been a real test. It wouldn't have been a real temptation. It would have been victory by default, so to speak. Oh, we're just going to go through the motions here, but no. He had to be able to mess this up or it doesn't work. It legally does not stand if he's not able to make a mistake. So he is physically able to do it. What had he determined to do? I've already made the decision ahead of time. I will not give Psuche credit. I will not let it rule, even for a moment. I will not let it be in charge, even for a second. Think about Satan's temptations of Jesus. I'm not going to talk about them today, but you probably remember the three different temptations. You could say one of them was about the flesh, one of them was about the spirit, one of them was about the soul. You could get into a bunch of different things about what those actually meant. In each case, when you really boil it down to brass tacks, what was the devil offering? Jesus, I want you to make a decision independently of yourself. You're hungry. Make that rock into bread. I want you, of your own volition, of your own choice, to make a decision here. I want you to worship, and then you won't have to go through the cross, because I'll give you the kingdoms of the world and all the glory of them. They're mine to give. Jesus didn't argue. They're mine to give. I can do it with whatever I want. So I'll give them to you if you'll just bow down and worship. I want you to make a choice for yourself instead of following God's plan. I want you to be soul controlled for just a moment instead of spirit controlled. Do something, do anything to exalt yourself, to make a decision for yourself, to use your own will to make your own choice, to go your own way. What was the appeal to? Psuche's dominance, Psuche's control, Psuche's existence, his mode of operations. Hebrews 10, 5-7. So when Jesus the Messiah came into the world, he said, since your ultimate desire was not another animal sacrifice, you have clothed me with a body that I might offer myself instead. Okay, who's he talking to here? Jesus is speaking to the Father. Does everyone see that? Your desire, Father, was not another animal sacrifice. They've had that for hundreds of years, thousands of years. And I've talked about it before. What does an animal sacrifice do? It's kicking the can down the road. We're not really going to deal with this right now, but here's a way to be pacified until I can actually deal with this. So would more animal sacrifices meet the bill? You're going to be kicking the can down the road into perpetuity. Never solve the situation. Since your ultimate desire was not an animal sacrifice, you clothed me with a body that I may offer myself instead. Multiple burnt offerings and sin offerings cannot satisfy your justice. So I said to you, God, I will be the one to go and do your will, to fulfill all that is written of me in your word. What's he saying? I'm going to go, and my entire task is to fulfill your will. My entire goal, my entire desire, my entire directive is to only fulfill your will, not mine. So go back to the garden for just a second. So, Lord, not my will, but yours be done. So what you doing again? Even though Psuche is screaming, even though he is fighting for his very life right here, even though he's throwing all this junk up in my mind and in my eyes and in my heart, he's throwing all this stuff up, making me feel really bad right now. Even though all this is happening, not my will, but your will. Right. And establishing again, I am controlled, I am directed only by my spirit.
I don't know where I read it, and I can't believe I didn't catch on to the story until I got to the end, that this was what it was about. It almost made me all when I was reading it. There was two ranchers, and they had sheep. And one rancher was very loving and very kind and very good to all his sheep, and he had a magnificent ram. The other rancher was very cruel to his sheep, but the sheep couldn't leave him. And all he wanted was the ram. So the good rancher finally said, I will take your sheep and trade, I will give you the ram. Okay, I should have called him. I didn't until later, because I'm reading it as animal abuse and oh my goodness. And they said he took the ram and the other, the ooze, that's all, how do you say that? Ooze, how do you say it? He's always seasoning about that one. They went over, they were being well treated, they were purchased, they were bought by the kind rancher. But he abused to death and brought back, and this is what I call it, the ram. And I was like, when are we gonna go get that guy, get him from animals? But they said he stood at the fence and he looked over with love and that he would someday be redeemed back and bought back by the good rancher and be with those that he loved so much. So it just somehow, see, and I mean, we have to realize that I see this in my head. I see the ram, I see the ranches, it all. And this is what makes watching TV and reading books a nightmare for me, is I almost feel it cutting.
Right.
Everything. And we've been through counseling for me for that. And I don't know why that's coming out as we read this, but it's like, yeah, there's the ram again.
But at least you're seeing it. At least I view it as a positive thing other than the emotional connection to it. But even that is probably good in a certain sense and probably helpful in a certain perspective.
We've heard the other day that if you're watching television or movies that include murder and other things, then you are living that in your heart. That is the sin of the eyes.
Wow.
And so it's protected us, from a lot of TV that we probably shouldn't have been watching videos, because it's, people say it's an emotional disability, and I'm like, no, it's almost a gift. It doesn't feel like it sometimes.
We deny them.
I can't take the pain. I do it. I used to. I've been taking that part.
Jesus came to reverse what Adam did. Adam decided to do things his own way and brought his soul out of submission to its maker. Jesus came on an uncompromising mission to fix this. No one would stop him, not Satan, not those wanting proof he was the Messiah, not his mother, not his beloved disciples. No one was going to stop him from fulfilling this mission, which was, I'm never going to give my soul the opportunity for it to be in charge. Peter encountered the forcefulness of Jesus' determination to complete his mission. Matthew 16, 21 through 22. From that time forth, Jesus began clearly to show his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things at the hands of the elders and the chief priests and scribes, and be killed, and on the third day be raised from death. Then Peter took him aside to speak to him privately and began to reprove and charge him sharply, saying, God forbid, Lord, this must never happen to you. The story does give us a valuable tip. Whenever you're about to rebuke the Lord, make sure you do it privately. You wouldn't want to embarrass him in front of others. And some of you are laughing because you know exactly what you've tried that. And that conversation doesn't usually go well. Why did this statement of Peter, let's back up. Why did this statement of Jesus provoke such a response from Peter? Hadn't Jesus been saying all along that he was going to be killed? The thing that was added here is he began clearly to show it. He began to tell it plainly. So now Peter couldn't excuse it away. Now he's faced to deal with this idea Jesus is going to be killed. He's going to Jerusalem with the intention of dying. And Peter has to deal with this. Why was that statement, when it was told clearly, when it was told plainly, why was that such an affront to Peter? Why was that so offensive to him? He had a different plan. Look, Jesus, we finally got everybody where we want them. It's time for you to reveal yourself as king. It's time for you to mount up your army. It's time for you to get everybody in line and take over. Peter's plan was different. Who was governing Peter's plan? Where'd he get that? His soul made up this whole thing. He thought he was based upon Scripture. He thought he was based upon, and there is an element to what he was believing that Jesus will do the second time he comes back. But that wasn't what he was intending to do the first time he came back. So his soul had gotten way out in front of everything else about this whole plan. Peter had already determined a path for Jesus. Jesus' plan did not match Peter's at all. This conversation was a confrontation between Peter's Psuche and Jesus's pneuma. So that's what's actually transpiring here. Peter is talking out of his soul, and he says, my plan for you is this. And Jesus said, I don't think so. Of course, he did it a little more interestingly than that, but your soul cannot determine what I'm about to do. I will not allow your soul, I will not allow my soul to determine what I'm about to do here. So the word rebuke or reprove, it says reprove and charge him. In other versions, it says reprimand, chastise, rebuke, scold, correct, criticize, objected, remonstrate. I don't even know what that is. I'll have to look that up. Protesting and tell him off. So Peter is telling him off. Has your soul ever tried to tell God off? Today, has your soul ever tried to tell him God? So the battle is still between my soul wanting to be in charge versus my spirit wanting to be in charge. That's the battle that Jesus is confronting here. Literally translated, Peter's reaction could be, have mercy on yourself, Jesus. Some of the translations talk about, Lord, be merciful, or God, be merciful. And literally it could say, have mercy on yourself, Jesus. What's he want to do? Don't be so hard on Psuche. You don't have to kill him. He might be useful. You don't have to take him out. You don't have to destroy him. You don't have to take him there to die. You don't have to do that. There's some other things that we could utilize from him there. Peter finally realized that Jesus intended to take Psuche all the way to the cross until it was dead. Peter was trying to get Jesus to lighten up on his soul-killing plan. Every time Jesus announced that he was going to die, he was talking about, I'm putting Psuche to death. And I never saw it before. Matthew 20:28. Just the Son of Man did not come to serve, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many, paying the price to set them free from the penalty of sin. You've heard this verse. You've heard other verses like it. I'm going to lay down my life. Now, before I read this, what did you think life meant? I'm going to lay down my body. I'm going to quit breathing. I'm going to lay myself down. The word for life is Psuche, not bios. I'm not going to lay down my physical body. He did lay down his physical body. But what he was saying is, I am coming. My point is to lay down my soul and put it to death. As we go through this, I'm not at all suggesting that Jesus did not deal with our sin. He absolutely did that. We would be in big trouble if he didn't do that. But don't focus so much on the fact that he dealt with your sin that you miss this other component of he came to destroy Psuche's power, Psuche's rule. So I'm not doing one at the expense of the other. I'm saying I, for one, have never realized Jesus' plan to destroy Psuche. His statements about, I'm killing Psuche, I'm taking him to the cross. If the plan all along was to remove Psuche from the throne of the human heart, doesn't the first part of the verse make more sense? Just the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve. Now think about that. How does that fit in with, I'm going to lay down my life? Well, it doesn't really, until you start thinking about, I'm laying down my soul. And my soul desires to be served. And one of the ways that I'm going to make sure that I lay that down is I came only to serve and not to be served. My attack is on my soul. My attack is on Psuche's power. My attack is on that. In addition to all the sin, but I'm not letting it get off free. I'm not letting it get away without being dealt with, without being reversed from when Adam put it enthroned. On the following verses, the word in red is Psuche in Greek. Listen to some of these. Mark 10:45. That is what the Son of Man has done. He came to serve, not to be served, then to give his life, his Psuche, in exchange for many who are held hostage. Yes, yes. Held hostage where? Held hostage, yes, in sin. Are we held hostage in our head? Is our soul holding us hostage because it's been in control? Absolutely. And until that gets broken, you're still going to be held in hostage. You still got all the strongholds and all the other junk to deal with, but that must die. John 10:11. I'm the good shepherd. The good shepherd risks and lay down his own life for the sheep. Now, how is that a attack on Psuche? Well, fool with you, I'm going to take care of me. Isn't that what your soul would say? I don't care about you. It only matters that I'm happy. It only matters that I'm in charge. It only matters that I'm getting what I want. Oh, no, 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 no. Jesus' perspective was, I'm going to lay that down for your benefit. I'm going to not be in charge of myself for your benefit. Continuing John 10, verse 15. Even as truly as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, and I'm giving my very own life and laying it down for the sheep.
He's the shepherd.
Yes. And shepherds weren't thought very highly of. They were necessary, but they bottom end of society, bottom end of. And I am laying down my Psuche, I'm laying down my soul into a situation where it doesn't appear as if I'm going to be rewarded.
So where is our personality house? Because if we kill the soul, God gave us each personality, so the personality must somehow be.
And I'm not saying kill the soul. I'm saying kill the soul's control. Right. It no longer has the ability, when we do this right, to make decisions for us.
Yeah, because that's what God is. Does God love our personality?
Yes, absolutely. And he gave it to you.
Yeah.
He gave it to you for a reason. But it's got to be sanctified. It's got to be brought through the process of coming to the agreement of who you are on the inside. It can't run the show. And we, for so long, I've heard people say, oh, but somebody behaves bad. Oh, that's just the way that they are. Really? I mean, that may be a polite thing to say if you want to say it, but is that the truth of the matter? That's the way they are at that moment. Is that the way they could be? Does God want you to be trapped by that, to help be held hostage by that? He wants you to keep your soul. He wants you to use your soul. Jesus operated in his soul. He had emotions. He had responses to things, but they were always controlled by his inner man, by his spirit. He never let him get out of control. When Adam blew it, Adam said, I'm doing this my way. God, I don't need you informing me. I don't need your help. I got this. Kicked the spirit out of being in, broke the whole communication thing, and put his soul upon the throne. And Jesus is coming to remove the soul from being on the throne. Not to make your soul go away, to bring it back under subjection, back under submission to the spirit inside you. Verse 17, the Father loves me because I sacrificed my life so I may take it back again. You can do some homework here. This is probably a good assignment. Look up the other references where Psuche, the Greek word Strong's 5590, if you want to look that up on the Blue Letter Bible, is rendered as life instead of soul. I'll post this out later. In all these versions verses that I have read to you, the word life in English is the Greek word Psuche, 5590. If you go to Blue Letter Bible, you can search for all the occurrences of 5590. And some of them will tell you how it's translated in the various places that occur. Some of them are soul, but there are many. I've got a page of notes where I already did this, of it's translated as life. Put soul in there for life where it's translated that way, and see if any of them make any difference to you. See if that verse reads differently when you're thinking about your soul rather than your life in those contexts. So that's your homework. I'll post that later. One of the places where that occurred was John 13, 37, 38. Both verses have Psuche translated as life. And I want to know how that passage applies to our current discussion. So it was a page of notes. So I'm going to guess there's like 30 places or so where it's done that way. Find them and see if putting the correct word in there changes that verse to you at all. Anyway, go back to Peter. So every time Jesus said, I'm about to die, He actually said, I'm about to kill Psuche. Now he starts speaking it plainly, and Peter rebukes him. Peter has a fit about the fact. Now we pick that story back up. Verse 23, Matthew 16:23. Then Jesus said to Peter, get away from me, Satan. You're not helping me. You don't care about the same things God does. You only care about things that people think are important. Okay, do you see how his response? Jesus, you're going too far here, man. You do not need to kill Psuche. Have a little mercy on Psuche. You don't need to do this. You're messed up. We need to utilize that guy and take its strengths, and we'll get him sanctified. We'll get him whatever, and we'll utilize that. But you don't need to destroy him. Get away from me, Satan. You're not helping me. You don't care about the same things God cares. You only care about the things that people think are important. Do you see how that statement could be derived from, this is an attack by Psuche? This is Psuche's last stand. This is Psuche's final vengeance. Jesus turned around and said to Peter, get away from me, Satan. You are an obstacle in my way. Because of these thoughts of yours don't come from God, but from human nature. What's he saying? The statement that you just made is not God's statement. It's not God's heart. It's not from God. It's from your human nature. It's from your soul that's too big for its britches right now. That's trying to control this whole situation, trying to control this whole thing. Jesus turned on Peter. Get behind me, Satan. He said, you're lying. You're trying to trip me up. You're coming at this from a human point of view, not from God's point of view. What's trying to be in charge? What's trying to be in control? Peter's soul. Lord, you don't want to do this. That doesn't fit with my plan. That's not how I envision this occurring. You need to stop. Get away from me, Satan. You're a stumbling block before me. You're not thinking about God's story. You're thinking about some distorted story of fallen, broken people. Where'd that fallen, distorted story of broken people come from? Years and years and years of Psuche being in charge. Get behind me, Satan, you're in my way, an offense and a hindrance and a snare to me. For you are minding what partakes of the nature and, you are not minding, I don't know what this happened here. Okay, there it is. For you are minding what partakes not of the nature and quality of God, but of man. So what's he saying? This idea did not come from God. This idea came from your head. And that enemy, that source of this document, that source of this thought is the very thing that I'm trying to kill here, trying to put it away. And the interesting thing about it is when your soul takes over and it tries to be in charge, who's actually running the show? Get behind me, Satan. It's not even get behind me. Peter, that's a bad idea. Look, you don't understand, man. No, get behind me, Satan. You, Satan, twisted this guy's thoughts and his opinions about stuff and into something that God can't even recognize. God can't even support. The passage goes on. Then Jesus said to his disciples, if you truly want to follow me, you should at once completely reject and disown. Now, right after he gets done, I rebuke you, Satan. You have in mind what comes from your own self and not from God. Then he turns to the rest of the disciples and he says, if you truly want to follow me, you should at once completely reject and disown your own life. You must be willing to share my cross and experience it as your own as you continually surrender to my ways. Let's stop right there. Get thee behind me, Satan. That thought is not from God. That is not what God wants to do. That is your own soul ruling the situation. If you really want to follow me, then you need to disown your own life. You must be willing to share my cross and experience it as your own. Disown your own life. Be willing to share my cross and experience it as your own. What's he saying? The thing that I'm about to demonstrate is what you've got to do to really be my disciple. You've got to crucify Psuche. And not just once. You've got to do it daily. You've got to put him back on that altar over and over and over and over again and just inform him with certainty, I'm not letting you rule. I'm not letting you be in charge. I'm not letting you dominate me. I'm not letting you tell me what I need to do. You are a response to what my spirit says. And only a response to what my spirit says. You are not the leader. You are not in charge. You are not God of my life. For if you choose self-sacrifice and lose your lives for my glory, you will continually discover true life. But if you choose to keep your lives, and both of these are Psuche, you will forfeit what you're trying to keep. For if you were able to gain all the wealth and power of this world at no cost to your own life, what good would that be? And what would be more value to you than your own soul? Instead of, let's go back to this, whoops, what happened? Okay, completely reject and disown your own life. Instead of reject and disown your own life, from verse 24, many versions say deny himself. The Greek word there means to forget oneself, lose sight of oneself and one's own interests. I'm going to say that again. Deny yourself means forget oneself, lose sight of oneself and one's own interests. What does that sound like? What do those things sound like? Isn't that Psuche? Isn't that the very definition of what Psuche is trying to do? So unless you deny yourself, unless you forfeit your own interests, forfeit your own desires, forfeit your own control of your own life, unless you do that, you can't be my disciple. Take that thing to the cross. Do exactly what he did. Continue to surrender to his ways. Decide to only follow the suggestions that come from your spirit. Remember the context here. Peter rebukes Jesus for plans to kill Psuche. Jesus says, get out of my way, Satan. This thing is going to the cross and there's nothing you can do about it. Then Jesus speaks to the other disciples. I'm about to demonstrate what you need to do in your own souls. In order to truly be my followers, you must take your souls to the cross as well. We already talked about what was happening when Jesus went to the Garden of Gethsemane just a little while later. So do you see Psuche getting stirred up? What do you mean I'm about to go to the cross? And then he goes to the garden and he's dealing with all the sorrow. He's dealing with all the depression. He's dealing with all the stuff. What's happening? You're not about to put me on the cross. What do you think you are? We're going to have a final showdown right here and there. They did. Jesus won. Thank goodness. It's possible. You can do it. You can put your soul down. You can make it obey your spirit, but you have to choose to do it. It's not just going to happen automatically. Psuche refused to go quietly into the night. You can see that as Jesus moved forward from this point. Psuche's starting to manifest. He's starting to cause problems, making Jesus depressed, making Jesus unhappy, making him sad, making him, I feel the weight of the sorrow. Well, where's all that coming from? He does not want to die. He does not want to yield. He does not want to come off the throne of the heart. Jesus would not cater to Psuche to satisfy its desires, even at the cost of the death of his own life. Why did he do this? He was laying down Psuche for us. He was reversing our original sin and bringing the soul back under control of the Spirit and of the Father. He was buying us back. Finally, I've got my Adam back again the way that I intended. Finally, I've established the system so that he and I can be in communion. He and I can be one. I can communicate to him. I can direct his spirit. And he has the ability now, by his spirit and by the strength that I have given him on the inside, he has the capability of finally saying no to Psuche, finally falling under my control, finally falling under my guidance, and never doing it his own way. Never doing it independently, never doing his own will, never pursuing his own desires, never being his own prideful self, because he's always doing it my way. God had big plans for Psuche. In your life, he's got big plans for Psuche as well. It's high time we realize it. It's high time we recognize it. And it's high time we start killing that sucker on a day-by-day basis. But before we can kill him, we got to know that he's there. We got to know the problem that he causes. And we've got to know all this stuff that we have been doing that keep enabling him, keep empowering him to mess up our lives, to keep us held in bondage. Lay that thing down. Get ready to take it to the cross. We're going to continue to talk about how that looks and what that looks like and all the other things. I did not realize, as I was going through all this, the extent to which Jesus spoke about dealing with Psuche. I kind of glazed over it. I misread it, misunderstood it was a big focus of his ministry. It was a big focus of his whole effort on the earth, is to make sure that this sucker dies. And the only way that we're going to do it is to never yield to it and kill him off. I'm going to make him go to a cross. Throw all the fits you want. Give me all the depression you want to deal with. Give me all give me everything you got. You're going down.